Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's DealerOn webinar, where an expert from Microsoft discusses the true value of search. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today. And today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. For anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, best known for our amazing SEO, the best customer service, and the highest converting website designs in the industry, including the award-winning Chameleon responsive website platform. We're so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that DealerOn is still the only company in the industry that offers a money-back lead guarantee program. Does your website company guarantee you a 50% lift in leads or your money back? Maybe you should check us out at our gorgeous brand new DealerOn website at DealerOn.com. Also, DealerOn is going to be hosting another Top Golf event, this time in Scottsdale, Arizona on December 7th. We got Google, we got golf, we got cocktails. It's going to be a recipe for awesomeness. Now, space is limited, so if you'd like more info on this amazing event, please check out tinyurl.com/ScottsdaleTG. And yes, I almost forgot to mention, all of this is free. All you have to do is show up. We hope to see you there. We have a great show in store for you today. We are very pleased to have Christi Olson as our presenter today. Christi Olson is the Bing Ads Evangelist at Microsoft in Seattle, Washington. She's an internationally recognized speaker and expert in search engine marketing. For over a decade, she's been a student and practitioner of SEM, living and breathing through the evolution of search and the transformations that have kept us all on our toes and adjusting our digital strategies. Christi is passionate about marketing and has spent her career helping businesses solve their marketing challenges and reach their goals through studying and analyzing data to develop actionable insights and strategies, and in developing integrated and holistic campaigns across digital channels. Prior to joining the team at Bing Ads, Christi has worked at Expedia, Harry & David, Microsoft, and the Altria Corporation. Christi is a University of Idaho Vandal alumna, and in May had her first child, a handsome little boy named Roy. Outside of work, you can find her with her husband and her son at CrossFit and learning how to run with a jogging stroller. You can follow her on Twitter or connect with her on LinkedIn. Now, I just want you to know Christi Olson will also be speaking on an expert panel on an upcoming Bing Ads webinar on December 14th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. This is an advanced webinar on paid search and the art and science of audience and attribution modeling. So if you want to join in on the fun, the link is on the screen now. Register and put this one on your calendar, people. Again, this is an advanced seminar, so I'm just letting you know. This is not for the faint at heart, okay? Now, during today's presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, we're going to try to respond by email later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of this webinar recording will be emailed to you later today for your reference. Feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Oh, and guess what? Our good friends over at Microsoft Bing, they're giving away a super cool prize on today's webinar. One lucky attendee is going to win some sweet Bing swag. This includes a hoodie, a water bottle, a coffee cup, headphones, a band, a lot of stuff, all right? We just named a few over here, but there's a lot of stuff. It's so fabulous. And I'm just going to let you know, you have to be on the live broadcast to win it. So stay tuned, and who knows, you could be the one walking away with this awesome prize today. Also, at the conclusion of this webinar, you're going to get a short survey, so fill it out, because we're always looking for quality feedback from our audience. We want to hear what you have to say. And hey, do you tweet much? We hope you do. We'd love to see what you have to say about today's presentation, so please tag us in it. You can use hashtag DealerOnWebby. I'm at Eliana Raggio. You can also hit up Christi Olson at Christi J. Olson. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. Now let's get started. Let's learn the true value of search from an expert from Microsoft Bing. How you doing, Christi? What's going on?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You know, Christi and I talked probably like a year ago about getting together and doing one of these webinars. I'm so glad you finally made it on the show, and you, my friend, are going to school us all on the value of search and the value of doing search on Bing as well, correct?
I am, and I'm really excited to be here. I know we talked and then it sort of fell off the radar, and I'm so glad that DealerOn invited me to come on and participate, and it's been so much fun talking with you, Sean, and Greg, just about search and some of the trends happening in general.
I love it. And audience, I got a sneak peek at her her deck. It's amazing and has so much, oh my gosh, so much information. So sit back and enjoy the show. And Christi, why don't you tell everyone all of the kinds of awesome things that you're going to be talking about today?
Perfect. So one of the things I want to talk about, and I'm going to touch on a few things very, very briefly, only because I know we have a limited amount of time and I could speak for hours on end, and Eliana and I have spoken for hours on end. She said, no, I'm only allowed to have like 45 minutes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the role that technology and Microsoft, specifically in terms of technology, is playing in search. And then I want to dive into a little bit deeper and understand what we call the customer decision journey. And I'll walk through what that is because I know it's a little bit confusing if you haven't heard about it. And really talking about the value of those different stages as the consumer's going through their purchase decision path. And then really one of the objectives is know what you know what you don't know, and know what you need to do better. And I always put that down because search is one of those disciplines where it's really easy to get into search and do some very basic things in terms of just knowing what keywords to advertise on, but there's a lot of really good in-depth information that you can always do a little bit more and make little tweaks and adjustments to what you're doing. So I'm going to talk about some of those today, and I leave it open that feel free to reach out via Twitter, email if you have other questions about, what else can we be doing, because there is so much that you can do in search that there's just not enough time in the day. And then finally, we're doing the giveaway, and then because I took up too much space with my objectives, we're going to have that Q&A section toward the end. Ooh, I wrote too much.
No, you didn't. You did great. You did great. Okay, let's go. Let's do this.
Perfect. So one of the interesting things that I really have to say that's been coming out in probably about the last 2 years is the fact that we've had so many technological leaps moving forward just in the digital space. And so the CEO of Microsoft, something that sort of got me excited is he's been talking a lot about that digital transformation. One of his quotes is, the world and technology are once again transforming. And we think about some of the leaps and bounds that have happened just going from into the digital era and this creative era that we're in. It is amazing to see like the world that I envisioned and dreamed of from watching sci-fi movies in the 80s and the early 90s. It's coming to fruition now. So like in the example of the picture off to the right, you see somebody playing HoloLens and using like virtual reality video gaming. That was something that we imagined would be happening at some point in the future, but I wasn't sure if it's more like that Jetsons dream of flying cars that we'd actually get to see it. It's actually here. It's actually coming to fruition now, where virtual reality, augmented reality, and the technology powering it, they're available today. And it's really exciting to see the role that search plays in it, and that search is playing in that technology that's been advancing, because it's not just augmented reality and virtual reality in a silo. The way Microsoft is looking at this technological transformation, they're putting search and Bing and the data that we have from the overall search results, they're putting it across all the different tools and platforms. So when I think about some of the transformation, I do have to think back to what the computer looked like when I grew up, and it was the Commodore 64. I don't know how many of you out there had a Commodore 64 where you had to do the L with the upside down little L for the login screen. You had to have some very basic coding skills. When I look at how technology's evolved, right now I'm using a Surface. It's tiny, it's thin, it's transportable. Even the laptop I had when I went into college was about 3 inches thick and weighed 30 pounds. And so you look at how technology has shifted and advanced. I have more power in my iPhone today than my laptop had when I went to college. Speaking of phones, we think about that original phone that we had back in the day. It's that giant brick that you carried around.
That's sexy.
Did you have one? You had to plug it into your car and the thing weighed about 75 pounds.
It's not like you could stick it in your pocket, man.
Yeah, I know. Now I look like the iPhone 7S when it came out, going like, oh, it's so huge. Really, it's not that much bigger than the 7. And it's so much smaller we had yesterday. And essentially that iPhone, it has so much power, and it has more power than a laptop had in the 90s to early 2000s. And that's what almost everyone, even I would say my child, no, he's 6 months old, he doesn't have a phone yet. But when I look at the kids in the daycare that he goes to, there are 3- and 4-year-olds that have their own smartphone walking around today. The power and the access to information data they have is pretty huge. And when I think about entertainment, just like what I envisioned, like 3D virtual reality looking at, I go back to my geeky roots, and I'm thinking Geordie LaForge. I'm thinking they're going to have these amazing glasses where he essentially, in order to see, he had to have these glasses envisioned. But in all reality, virtual reality, it's available today. Now, when you think of virtual reality, Microsoft has the HoloLens, and it's a very, very expensive set because it really is about augmented reality, so adjusting what you're looking at today. But when we think of VR, Oculus and the Oculus Rift, you have the Samsung Gear, they're in that $300 to $400 range, and people are starting to play with virtual reality on a regular basis. Even the experiences that are available, I know I was completely amazed to go to the Digital Dealer Summit in Vegas and see that they're doing virtual reality showrooms. They're doing 3D renditions and models of the vehicles, and essentially the next step is, can you actually test drive the vehicle where you're going? Technology is advancing, and it is absolutely crazy how fast it is advancing, especially when you think where we're at 20 years ago. To sort of talk about that power of technology, when you think about the moon landing back in the 60s, you have more power in your cell phone today than NASA had for the entirety of the moon landing. It is absolutely crazy. And even if you think of your cell phone, and I'm sort of looking at my iPhone in my hand right now, it's the size of my hand. Most of the phone is essentially the battery and the battery power. So when we think of Moore's law and how technology is advancing, eventually we're going to get to the point where the battery really is only going to be about 2 fingers wide, because they can essentially use new technology and they're going to be able to power it. So the phones don't have to be as big as they are today. And that also really plays into that virtual reality and some of the AI that's coming, is because right now a lot of our devices are the size they are because we need to have these batteries to power them and keep them alive. And when we're talking about batteries and phones and mobile, that's part of the shift that we're seeing today. And if you've talked to a Google rep, which I'm assuming almost everybody has, you essentially hear a lot about mobile, and where about 50% of the volume is mobile. It's to the point where we don't go online. I don't talk about like, oh honey, I need to go and access the internet, I need to go online. I'm online. I'm online 24/7. I've got my phone with me. I pretty much sleep with my phone next to my bed. And Eliana, do you do the same? Are you guilty?
Next to my bed, and if I could have it surgically implanted onto my hand, I would absolutely be doing that.
But wait, you can. That's essentially what the Apple Watch, the Microsoft Band, I know Samsung has a version, but you essentially, it sends everything directly to your wrist. So you even think about like the Internet of the Things and where technology is advancing. Like, we don't go to a laptop to access the Internet. The Internet's with us wherever we go. And as I just mentioned, like 50% of searches are on mobile devices, and sort of what I joke about on a regular basis, but if you think about mobile, a lot of user experience sucks on mobile device. Like, here's this beautiful website, and it's one that I tease often. It's a Microsoft-based site for Microsoft employees. It's great. It gives us discounts and let us know where to go, until you try to access the stupid thing on your phone, like the picture there on the left, and all I can see is the navigational menu. I'm like, great, I can't actually see which restaurants I get discounts at with this little passport card thing we have. And it's because even though mobile has been moving so forward and so much to the future, a lot of companies aren't thinking about that mobile experience. Even when I think about Washington State, where I live, the ferry website, they essentially took the website and put it in this iframe, and good luck trying to navigate to figure out what time your ferry departs. If your fingers are bigger than, I don't know, my 6-month-olds, it's really hard to navigate and to push and to access websites and information. So like, why is this important? Why am I talking about mobile and technology? It's because you've got to think about what you're doing from a marketing, from an advertising perspective, not just based on your goals and your objectives, but where the consumers are, what the consumers are doing. And so thinking about your mobile experience is pretty important, because consumers are actually spending more time now on mobile devices than they are on PCs. I think the latest stats I saw from ComScore came out to something like 55% of search queries are happening on mobile devices versus desktops. So it's still pretty close to that 50-50 range, but if you're not looking at that mobile experience and you're asking consumers to come to your dealership and find you, but they actually can't navigate to your website, or they can't navigate around to find your address, your location, your information, it's going to be pretty tough. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Eliana.
All right, audience, I know you've been waiting for this. It's our first of 2 poll questions today. We only have 2 poll questions, but we ask for your input on both of these so we know what the heck is going on in your dealership, all right? So the question is, does your dealership currently have a responsive website? Please select one of the following answers. Yes, and it's working great for us. No, we have a separate mobile and desktop versions of our sites. No, not yet, but soon. No, the websites our OEM makes us use aren't responsive. Or I have no idea how to tell if it's responsive. Once we get a majority of those votes in, we're going to close this poll and share those results. And get those questions in. You have an expert from Bing who is here. So if you have any questions about Bing, today is the day to ask them. That's why we asked Christy to be here. It's, actually, I don't think I said this before. It's my very first webinar that we've ever done about Bing. So I'm really excited about this, Christy. If I didn't let you know already, I'm very, very excited about this. We should do more of these because, you know, Bing has such a large part of the market share. So, oh, I see. Oh, Christy, when you get a chance, could you send me the link or tell me the link for the Bing webinar? We have a couple people who've been asking about it, and I actually do not have it written down.
I would have to exit out of the presentation, so I'm not going to do that right now, but I will send it over. Trying to think if I can type it. I don't think I have it memorized off the top of my head. So I know.
Okay, well, don't worry about it. You know what? For anyone who's interested about that advanced webinar that Bing is going to be putting on December 14th, all you have to do is download the handout, go to the handout section of the GoToWebinar interface, and you can get Christy's slide deck from today. And of course, that link is in there more than once. So that would be the easiest way to probably get a hold of that link, right?
Look on my cell phone really quick. I think it's probably aka.ms/attribution audiences, all lowercase, which unfortunately that's a lot of words. But I'm trying to find it really quick on my cell phone while we're waiting for the responses.
Well, no worries. Let's close this poll and share those results. Audience, thank you so much for your votes. You really, really, you rock my world. All right, here we go. Just so you know, Christy, 75% of my very smart audience said yes, their dealership currently does have a responsive website and it's working great for them. 75%.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
And that makes me so happy. And partially why I asked that is because when you think about mobile experience, really, and I'm going to talk both search engines, both Google and Bing. When you think about what the search engines are trying to do, really, consumers come to us with specific questions. They're asking for information. They give you a lot of intent. They give a lot of signals on the back end. The search engines are really trying to just give the best answer and the best user experience possible. So both Google and Bing, when they ask about like mobile, what is the recommendation, responsive design really is the recommendation sort of that is available now. And the reason we think about responsive design is because it's easier than trying to manage 2 different versions of your website. So if you do like an MDOT, then you're essentially having to maintain 2 unique websites, and that gets really challenging and really difficult. Then from a resource perspective, as you make updates and changes and tweaks, it is just a pain in the butt across the board.
Yeah.
And so responsive really is where we see and the recommendations we give for where you should look at. Now, one of the things I will bring up is that there was an announcement that Google made back in mid-October, where it was really talking about they're going to be doing a unique mobile index. And with that unique mobile index, essentially they're going to be crawling mobile sites and giving more preference on the mobile side because they're seeing queries come through more on mobile devices than desktop. What that means for you, if you haven't moved toward responsive design, or even if you have moved toward responsive design, what you need to start thinking about from an SEO perspective is what you can do to make sure that your site is loading quickly and that it's easy to use from a navigation standpoint. So I will tweet out, because I don't believe I actually put the page load speed recommendations in the resources at the end of this deck. I'll tweet out some links for what you should be thinking about for improving page load speed. But essentially you want to get it so your site loads on a mobile device in under 3 seconds. Once it hits about 3 seconds, you see the bounce rates and the drop-off increase pretty substantially. So whatever you can do to have a good user experience and improve page load is going to be very important. The other thing to think about is that ease of navigation. as people are going through your website. And I call it the fat finger syndrome because I have this as I'm trying to navigate and try to click something, that if your site is too close together, if it's not designed specifically for mobile, consumers are going to have a hard time navigating. If they have a hard time navigating, they can't get to where they want to go, they're going to get frustrated. When they get frustrated, they're just going to hit the back button, exit out. So think about your mobile experience, and the two easiest things you can think of: page load speed, making it easy to navigate, and easy to find content on those pages, really are sort of the high level what you should be thinking about today if you aren't already thinking of it. And I didn't want to go too in depth into mobile because I want to talk about some really cool stuff we have coming down the pipe. And so when we think about, I talked a little bit evolution of technology. Ooh, this isn't quite building the way it was supposed to. I'm also like, hey, I'm missing a line in the middle. I want to talk about evolution of search, and this is a little bit more focused on paid search than it is on organic side. Although I do include a couple of things from the organic side of search. When you think about it, all the technology I've told you in terms of the front end, when you think of that development cycle from the PC going from the Commodore 64 to a Surface, that sort of happened over a 20 to 30 year period to get where we're at from a technology standpoint. But when we look at search, search is about 26 years old. The first 10 years of search's life, not much happened with it. It wasn't until that early 2000 timeframe that Google really started getting ground, and people started going like, oh, we can go to the World Wide Web, we can do this. And that's when really it became about doing search queries. The next 10 years, there wasn't a ton of advancement overall in search. There was some additional filtering. You could do, people started talking about like the phrases, how to type in different phrases of search. But when you look at that back-end based technology, it actually stayed pretty consistent. But once you hit that 2009, 2010 timeframe, the search engines made a pretty big swap. And I actually was a part of this because I was on the team that launched Bing back in 2009, and it moved from just being 10 blue links to saying what type of information can we give consumers on the search result page, essentially to help answer their questions and get them information right away. That essentially is that knowledge graph. And around that same time frame is when machine learning started to come into play. And it's one that not a lot of people know about, but back when Bing first launched, we used machine learning in the algorithm where we said, you know, instead of having 1,000 college-age kids hitting buttons in the back of a room, we can use collective machine learning to help make decisions based on all these queries we having come in and vetting, like, is this a good search results based on how consumers and user engage with the SERP. And so we started using machine learning. In 2009 is also that time frame when we started talking about search being like, this will be the mobile is going to be huge, mobile is going to be huge, and it didn't happen. It wasn't until 2012 that we started to see that shift of about 50% of searches coming on the mobile side. I'm going to sort of go through the front end of this pretty quick. So we look at how search is evolving just in the last 3 years, partially due to the proliferation of iPhones. We have seen voice searches becoming more prominent. Cortana, Siri, Alexa. Consumers are getting more comfortable talking in devices and getting overall results, but that also means that the AI and the technology on the back end from natural language processing has had to evolve. And it wasn't until October of this year, so last month, that essentially the word understanding rate for some of these essentially personal digital assistants like Cortana, Siri actually reached parity with a human. And so here in 2016, while people have been using voice search, the machine's ability to understand and actually get to parity with human understanding, it's taken until now. And so we're looking at where we're going in the future. It's going to be more personalized. We're thinking more about how artificial intelligence and machine learning get incorporated into search, both from how it does specific things on the back end from the algorithm side, but also in trying to be more predictive to say, you know, based on these things that you've done on a search, the searches you've done, both on your voice search, both in desktop search, here's something else we think you need to know and things you need to be aware of. So it's just things to think about as we're going through some of this customer decision journey to be aware of. There's going to be some AI that's coming out in the future that will actually help you as an advertiser and as a business owner understand how to reach and engage with customers better. I'm not making announcements today, so I'll just keep it at that from a high level. And as I said, on the evolution side, this really ugly picture, this is what search used to look like. It was just 3 ads on the top, you had some ads on the side, and just lots and lots of links. we've sort of moved away from that to thinking of this artificial intelligence and understanding human context, understanding intent, and understanding, what our consumers think, like having more information about the consumer, especially as we think about digital assistants. So with Microsoft, one of the really interesting things is Microsoft made a really big bet on search. And if you don't understand how big of a bet Microsoft is making, I don't know how many of you have actually used Windows in the past. Windows was the biggest revenue driver for Microsoft for a very, very long time. Starting with the Windows 10 launch, we were giving Windows away for free, and partially because they gave Windows away for free because they've integrated search into Windows. They've integrated search into Office and all these different technologies. So if you had, prior to July this year, if you already had Windows on your machine, you could get Windows for free because they're integrating search as a platform into all these different products across the board. And that essentially what we call the intelligence layer that is search is this tool we call Cortana. And Cortana is our personal digital assistant AI that is providing information and context back to consumers. So if you think of Cortana from a voice search standpoint, if I'm using my phone, I might say something like, hey, I was driving up 405 about 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden the transmission light came on my car and the car stopped moving. So I would be like, hey, Cortana, I need to call my mechanic, or in my case, it's also a tow truck. Because I've given Cortana and essentially search access to some of my personal information, it knows things about me. So it knows approximately how far I drive because I have my phone in my car with me. So it knows that, I'm going to need to have an oil change pretty soon based on the information I've shared. It also knows that if there's been a recall on my overall vehicle because I've uploaded information into my personal digital assistant about that vehicle. And it also can be actionable in the sense of saying, like, yeah, you need that oil change. Did you know that Jiffy Lube is down the street and it has a discount running right now, so you can go ahead and book or go ahead and take that action. So when you think about search right now, you're giving it context and information, and it's giving you back links and it's giving you back information. With AI and with Cortana, what Microsoft is looking to do is be more personalized, predictive, and help you take more actions that you might not know you need to take. And I have a whole separate presentation on this, so I'm not going to go super in depth, but feel free to reach out and ask more information. With that, with Cortana, as I mentioned, it's not just on a specific device, it's across devices. So Cortana has been integrated into Xbox, it's been integrated into your phone, your desktop, HoloLens. So it's one of those that it's moving away from just being on your PC, but it's the intelligence platform that is spanning across all the Microsoft services. And what that essentially means is as more people have adopted Windows 10, we're seeing growth overall in the Bing network. When I started in 2009 timeframe of working with Bing, we were at that 8.3% search share, and it made it really tough when you're trying to go out and tell people, like, hey, Bing has a big enough audience for you to actually come out and spend your advertising dollars, and to think about from an advertising perspective because Google is so huge. But when you look at it now, Bing is a standalone search engine, 20%, but the Bing network, according to ComScore, it's around 33%, meaning 1 in 3 searches is happening on Bing. And so now it's one of those audiences when you think about engaging with multiple search engines and where you spend your time and resources, 1 in 3 searches coming from Bing, it's no small thing to sort of laugh at. You wouldn't automatically ignore a third of your overall audience from a dealer perspective just because you don't want to spend time on it. And with that expansion, what we're seeing is that search isn't just that text box, as I was saying. You have the AI and sort of chat bots that are in the back end, and I'm actually going to have an article on Search Engine Land coming out probably the first week of December talking a little bit about chatbots and how they're already out and accessible today, and they're accessing your website to get content and information so that as consumers engage with sort of these future technology, they're pulling information in today, and if there's some issues with your site, they're going to have issues with giving consumers access to your information. But you think about it also, Alexa and Siri, or Alexa from the standpoint of people engage with it. It's really fun going to my daycare because the 3- and 5-year-olds that are in the daycare with my 6-month-old son, they can't type yet. But I watched them, and I saw this the other week, go over to Alexa, and they're like, Alexa, order me pizza. And to them, it's this magical device that they speak to it. and things magically happen. What they don't realize is that the daycare provider talks to me and the other mom, and we essentially buy the stuff that might be on their list. So at one point we had 265 large bags of Skittles ordered onto that list because the 3-year-old kept on walking over and being like, Alexa, give me Skittles, give me wild berry Skittles. And so he put it on the list and we make that purchase. For him, search and how he engages with these devices, it's so intuitive, it's so natural because he hasn't learned anything else. He doesn't know how to talk, or he doesn't know how to type, but he can talk to it. And then we think about as it's moving into the future, it's the HoloLens, there's going to be these really immense, rich experiences, and I'm hoping that this works. So, okay, good. It's going to be on a couple second lag. It's running in the background. I hope it's a little better. Something that's happening in terms of technology of tomorrow, and from a dealership perspective, you guys are already ahead of the game in terms of thinking about augmented reality, virtual reality, but people can use these augmented reality scenarios to essentially engage with products in a 3D experience. So it's especially in retail space, thinking about things you'd want to purchase, things you'd want to look at. If I'm going to be buying furniture for my house, I'd want to see it in my house. Augmented reality was something that seemed like 10, 15 years into the future, but it's actually coming to fruition today. And so really, Bing is a part of that because as consumers can search with augmented reality devices, it's providing the access, and it's providing the information of here's these products we have in either AR or VR experience that's ready today. And so Bing is ready to power some of those experiences. Now, they're not monetizable today, but in the future you can envision like what would happen from a dealer perspective if somebody's doing a search for a make and different model of vehicle, that they could actually put on their either AR, VR glasses and engage with that car and say, will this fit what I'm looking for? And so it sort of comes into that second stage, really what I want to dig into and talk about. So it's understanding the customer journey. And then really the second half of that understanding the customer journey is you have to have a seamless experience. It's why I talked about mobile up front. And then not only do you have to deliver that experience, but you have to be able to measure it and understand, is it working the way you thought it was going to work? How do you tweak what you're doing from a marketing and advertising perspective to make sure that you are correctly engaging with your customers on the back end? So thinking about this from the customer journey, I sort of break it into a couple of different buckets. I want to learn, I want to go and do, I want to buy something. Right now, when we talk about paid search and we talk about search, a lot of people only think about that final bucket, the I want to buy. They just want to be present from when consumers are ready to make that purchase. The problem is customers are engaging with search across all three of these phases. And I love, there's a gentleman called Avinash Kaushik, who has this model, Be, Think, Do, which essentially is saying, we have all of these different models from a traditional marketing standpoint about the purchase cycle, but it's the inquisitive side of wanting to learn, being like, you know what, it's awareness. It's getting out there as consumers are trying to figure out what it is they want to do next. So like from a C perspective, I think I'm going to look for a new vehicle. I'm not ready to make that purchase yet. So I know there's a bunch of vehicles out there. I saw this TV ad for something really cool. So I want to learn more about it. To the think phase, and I do have an example about me personally on this one where it's like, hey, we're going to have a baby. I need a car that fits my car seat, and I need a car that fits my car seat and my legs. So it's you know what, I think we're pregnant, we're having a baby, we're going to now need to actually move from just learning more to actually figuring out what we need. And eventually we hit that do phase, or the I want to purchase. It's really important from a marketing perspective to be across each of those stages, because consumers aren't just looking to make that purchase. They want to be able to find and have information about your product as they're doing the investigation standpoint. The other way to think about this from the customer decision journey, and this is an actual example for me as I was investigating, although I haven't purchased my Volvo at the dealership yet, partially because we just finished paying off the car we had before, and my husband said I have to wait a couple weeks. But this summer, we got our car, and we realized, our car seat fits in the car, but my legs don't fit in the car, and my husband actually can't drive my car because it doesn't fit. So we saw an ad for, Volvo had the summer sales event going on, and so we're like, that's interesting. Go online, start doing some searches around, what are the safest vehicles out there? Like if I'm going to buy a car for me and my baby, I want something to be really safe. I want to make sure it has great ratings and reviews. and I'm going to do some searches. And I'm going to search multiple different times. Sometimes I'll click an organic listing, sometimes paid. I might go to websites, and it's not just one. In this example, I made it to Volvo's site, but I also went through and looked at Ford. I looked at Jeep. I looked at Toyota. I looked at GM. I looked at all these different brands. And then I talked to friends on social media. If you notice, I'm not doing a straight path. I'm doing a lot of different things, engaging with different channels. And I might have seen an ad on Car and Driver that talks about, you know, here's this specific product. It might be a remarketing ad, but it said like, hey, you went to our website. Hey, by the way, don't forget our brand. Don't forget our overall ads. And then because I've been engaging with different people with that brand, I might actually go in and do a product search. And that's when you get into, I started with something very generic, non-brand, and going down to that brand side, go to the website, find my dealer, and then eventually it's going to be making that purchase. For me, there's a couple of things that happen on that purchase side that the finance I get to figure out. But when you look at how consumers engage and interact with your marketing channels, it's not like they just engage from they type in your brand and they make a purchase. They engage across social, they display, TV, your radio ads they have, both at the national level from what your national OEMs are doing, but also at that local level. When you hear the radio ads, you're thinking like, oh, Dwayne Lane is up the road from me. Maybe they have something going on. Maybe I should stop by there and see like what inventory they have in stock and pricing. But I might also go online to look for that. So it's really important to think about that customer decision journey of how are consumers engaging across all those different brands. And with that engagement type, for the automotive space, you're in a pretty interesting place because how we look at the type of journeys and how consumers interact is we sort of look at two different things. We look at how often do they make a purchase, and essentially we call cost of failure. And if you think of cost of failure as like if you make a purchase and it turns out that you completely effed up on that purchase, what is the impact to you? What I love, and I'm hoping the audio works on this, I haven't done this live streaming, I think Hotels.com, from a hotel standpoint, got this completely correct with the following ad.
Not exactly what I expected.
Definitely more murdery than the reviews said.
This is a creepy room.
Hey, Captain Obvious.
You should have used Hotels.com. Their genuine guest reviews are written by guests who have genuinely stayed there, instead of people who lie on the internet.
Look, a finger.
That's unsettling.
You think?
All the time. Except when I sleep, which I would not do here.
Okay. I love this one just for my thinking about like Hotels.com really hit a nerve with customers. When you think about it, you might only take one vacation a year. And if you're saving up, and maybe it's one big trip every 2 years, you're saving up your money to make that big purchase. And if you screw up and you book the wrong hotel room and you have this horrible experience, it's going to ruin your vacation. So understanding that it's a purchase that maybe not be super frequent, and if you screw that purchase up, it's a huge cost of failure, and it's going to ruin your entire vacation time frame. I love how they do it. So when you think about like the type of journeys that people take and the stages they go through, there's going to be something completely different if I buy the wrong diaper, which actually happened last month. I bought a generic off-brand diaper. Turns out my baby's my baby's heavy enough that I bought 295 diapers that fit him for about a week, and it's like, oh, this size is not the same as the big brands. Granted, it's like a $20 purchase, so like, is it the end of the world? No, it just means I'm not going to purchase that brand again. I'm going to go back to the previous brand and make sure that they fit him, and I'm not going to be buying 400 of something I don't know. But when you think about that car purchase, I don't make a car purchase very often. For me personally, it's every 5 to maybe 10 years I'll buy a new car. And if I buy the wrong car, it's a pretty high cost of failure because I'm not going to have another $25,000 or $30,000. So consumers on these high cost of failure, high cost, low frequent purchases spend a lot more time doing the research phases. They spend a lot more time investigating before they make that purchase. Like buying the diapers, I didn't investigate that generic brand. I probably should have, to understand that they fit a full size smaller. Because the cost is low. It's $20. If I buy the wrong one, you know what? I can just go down to the grocery store and buy a different new brand, and no big deal. So when you think about this cost failure, because consumers are going to be doing a lot more investigations, you actually want to be there then as they're going across each stage of that purchase, from the see, the think, to the do phase, and you want to look at it. From a paid search perspective, one of the things to think about is, are you present, yes or no? So we look at this model called share of intent, and that is for the words and phrases that you're currently advertising on, how often are you showing up? Also your impression share. And I like to categorize them together in a handful of different groupings, and on the next slide I actually go into like how could you categorize it specifically in the automotive space to say like, are you actually present? So like for your generic and non-brand phrases, if you're only showing up 25% of the time, that means 75% of the time that consumers are looking for something related to that purchase path, you're not visible. You're missing out on that opportunity. Now, is that a good thing or bad thing? That can actually be up to you based on, you know, do you have budget? Are you bidding on the right words and phrases? But when you think about like your brand name and your make and model, you want to show up if you have inventory in stock. So if you're a Ford and you have Ford Focuses in stock and it's beginning to have that year-over model change, and you're showing up 25% of the time when somebody searches for Ford Focus in your local area, you're missing a huge opportunity to make sure that consumers know that you have that product. And so it's one that we're starting to look at, is that share of intent and understanding you're there. So from you, like what are some of those categorizations you can look at? On the generic non-brand type, some of it's vehicle type, and I know some of this will happen for you guys at that national tier 1 level at your OEM, that they'll be purchasing things like sedan, coupe, pickup, SUV, but also you think about the usage types. Like when I'm doing a search, I didn't search for like SUV, I searched for what is the best family car, what's the best car for a baby, which cars fit a car, multiple car seats. So you can also think about the usage type that consumers take. Well, back when I was previous to baby, previous married, I was doing searches for like which cars are good for big dogs because I wanted to be able to have like 2 golden retrievers in the back and potentially have a car seat in the front at some point in time. So you can think about different ways to categorize that share of intent that fit across the overall usage cycle to look like, are you showing up when you should be or you think you're showing up? And so, as I said, search sort of is that glue that comes across. And there's a lot of words on the screen, and it's pretty small font, so I like to categorize it a little bit more. And so it's like the education phase, that C is the learn more and become informed. But you also think about that consideration set, which is part of that C phase. You're refining your options. You're trying to understand, like, okay, I know I need an SUV, but which SUV is it? Is it which brand? On the product comparison side, it really is things searching for words and phrases related to ratings, reviews, features, costs, price. What is the right product you're looking at? On the where to purchase, it could actually be like, where do I buy a Ford Focus? It could be your dealer name, but also people are looking about availability and price. And then that final phase of the journey, which I essentially consider that the flywheel, to get them back in and get them around, is they're there from a loyalty perspective and they're trying to get help. They're trying to get more information. From a dealership perspective, this could be you saying, if you know that somebody has purchased your vehicle because or engaged with your brand, it could be the get them back into your service center and to your to the repair portion. Like, are they coming back for, like, are you reaching consumers when they're looking for their 20,000 mile checkup, oil changes, etc. You already do that during the BDM process when they're making the purchase. You upsell them on those packages, but when consumers are searching for it, are you also there? So the consumers go through these stages. I added a stage that I didn't talk about before in that see, think, do model, and it's coddle, which is that loyalty. It's keep them coming back around. You don't just reach out to them, but you engage with them. So how does that work then across the entire customer journey? When you think about it, it's the types of words and phrases, like the scenario is like, I need a car seat or a car that fits my car seat and my spouse, because with him being 6'4", he actually couldn't have his seat back far enough to fit his knees in the car. So like the type of questions that, like my example is, I need a larger car, so I might be looking for things like what cars have more room. I might decide then, you know, an SUV probably is that best fit because it's between SUV and a minivan. I'm not a minivan type of person, so I'm going to ask specific questions as I do my research. So essentially you think about this journey that I'm taking, you essentially you want to participate across those phases to make sure that consumers are thinking of your brand and or your OEM as they go through this example. And what that then means from a query perspective, it's not just, you can't look at it from these exact queries fit this exact phase. there are some types of queries and modifiers into your keywords that help you identify where to meet the consumer and where you can match intent to the phases. So if you think from an education standpoint, they're probably looking for something, like I said, pretty broad: sedan, SUV. Where do I like? What do I? What are the best products that fit this type of need? But if you think about those broad keywords, could actually go across multiple phases. Similarly to if I search for a 2017 Ford Focus, I might actually be in that education phase where I saw something about this new vehicle coming that has new features, but I might also be looking on the purchase side. So I pull this in from a understanding intent phase, because unfortunately you can't just say this keyword fits this phase of the overall purchase journey, but you can start to think about some of those modifiers that people search for that you either want to participate or don't want to participate in. Like from a dealership perspective, if somebody's looking for photos of a specific car, they're probably less likely to be making a purchase. You might not want to participate in that type of overall experience. You might want to be looking for when they're looking at comparing Model A versus Model B, looking for pricing and financing information across those models. That's where you might want to participate on a more regular basis. Things you definitely want to think about participating in is like when they're asking, where do I buy this, or looking for your actual dealer name, store name, pricing, specific pricing information. It gives you the intent that they're further down that purchase funnel, they're more likely to make that purchase. So it's figuring out the stages and how do you reach them. So right now I'm going to go into a little bit from a case study perspective. One of the things we're talking about, like, why would you participate above the entire path? And so we are actually going to be putting this out in a white paper. I'm going through the editorial process of that white paper this week. I write like I talk, which means I have run-on sentences, so the editorial team loves me because they have to redline everything when I write. So this is very high level, telling you what some of the key takeaways from that white paper. But we looked at what happens from a query path and a behavioral analysis standpoint. And I can't give you the actual brand name that participate in the study, but we essentially looked at an automotive OEM that's one of the top automotive OEMs here in the United States, and we looked at what happens as consumers are engaging with that brand. And so we looked at the type of queries that consumers search before going into that brand's website, and we sort of categorized them to brand, non-brand, and essentially we consider conquest or competitors terms. So not if the OEM is the Toyota, then anything that's not Toyota would be considered a conquest term and phrase. So what we looked at was how are consumers engaging with that brand and what does the path look like from a purchase perspective? And we looked at all the different query combinations on the path, and we essentially broke it down into there's really 5 types of query path that we saw on a regular basis. And then we looked at when they did each of these different types of query paths, what happened if they saw a brand ad at the top on this non-brand or a conquest scenario versus they didn't see a brand ad. So you're either present or you're not present. And so when a journey ended with a branded search, which for this specific OEM from a paid search perspective was 97% of the time, prior to that brand search actually happening, 72% of the time they proceeded with not just one, a lot of times it was multiple queries that were non-brand related, meaning that before somebody actually said, hey, Dwayne Lane Toyota or Dwayne Lane dealer, I'm going to be searching for something that is non-brand and more generic up the funnel. So it sort of validated, like, should you be present across the entire funnel? 72% of the time, yes. 72% of the time, consumers were engaging with non-brand or competitors-related words and phrases before they actually came through and clicked on that brand. So like I said, 72% of brand ad clicks had a non-brand or conquest term in that journey before the click. And in addition to that, when the branded ad was present on that non-brand or generic search query, consumers were 30% more likely to do that branded search. So when we looked at the test versus control group, so the test was brand ad present versus control, no brand ad was present on a generic term and phrase, we actually saw an increase of 30% of branded searches when the ad was there, and that doesn't even mean they clicked on it, they just saw it. So it shows, like, is there value beyond a click? there is a little bit of value beyond that click. It helps with the memory and recall. And to me, this was a really important thing to research to do, because as a paid search manager, I have made the assumption of this without actually having data to verify it. I've made this assumption for the past 10 years that there is value in being present in the ads, even if you don't get that click. And this actually came back and validated, yeah, you do see a lift and you do see increases in brand queries happening because you're visible in that search results. And the other really interesting thing for that top of the funnel, if you're there on those non-brand generic type of queries, when consumers then saw the branded ad, did not click through it in that example, but then later did a branded search and then clicked through on the brand, we actually saw a 15% increase to conversion rate, meaning they took a specific action on that OEM website. And for us, the conversion rate, the actions were things like find a dealer, get a price quote, get information about my trade-in value. So it was actual metrics that, that as a dealership you would want consumers to engage with on a level. So what that means is there is value at the top of the funnel. And additionally, as you think about that value, the other value is making sure you get the right experience to consumers. And again, I forgot to edit this so that it came in slowly one by one, but if you think about how you can engage with consumers and those really important tasks across the journey, especially as you think about automotive, they do a lot of research, it's making sure you send consumers to the right content, to the right pages. So like on that general education, like things like best family cars, safest cars for children, cars that work well for babies. That's when people are searching for that type of term and phrase. Now, granted, in this example, it's not a dealership or an OEM showing up, so, but if you have information and content that's really relevant, you'd want to appear potentially in that education set. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you which cars I'm going to see and what's going to be present at the top of the funnel. Then when you think about that consideration and the filtering it down, things that people are looking for, they're looking to help reduce what they're looking at. They're helping. They want to know. They want to narrow that set down so that I'm not looking at 85 different vehicles. I want to really narrow it down to 4 or 5. And so giving information to me to narrow down that set about like newest cars, what's available, what's safe, very helpful. And then when you think about that product comparison, actually being able to compare models and pricing and see them side by side, really important to do. When you're not specifically in the automotive space, where a lot of people can shine on this product comparison from an ad copy standpoint, it comes back to actually doing product ads. We don't have product ads for vehicles yet. That doesn't mean it isn't something that will come at some point in the future. And then that where to purchase, making sure that you, essentially from a dealership level, you want to be there on that where to purchase side. Make sure your ads are visible. The example I have here for the Volvo, and I actually have another screenshot of it down the road, is they're missing a huge opportunity because their address isn't visible. I know Greg Gifford from DealerOn talks on a really regular basis the power of NAP, name, address, phone number, and showing in local listings. They're missing out here from a paid search standpoint to make sure that people can find them. And you also have that local listing. So giving that intent and opportunity, I definitely have to say, if you look at these ads about Volvo on the right-hand side, there's a huge opportunity being lost because the locations aren't present. Most of you probably don't know much about Seattle or where I'm at. I search for Volvo of Bellevue, the city I live in. The very first one is the local listing for me. It's missing the address. I don't know where it's at. I'm not a huge car person, so I don't know where in Bellevue, and it's a pretty decent-sized town it is. The second ad's for a town about 35, 40 miles south of me. It takes an hour and a half to drive there. I would need something very compelling for me to drive an hour and a half to go find a vehicle. And so it's sort of missing from the ad copy standpoint because it, number one, doesn't have the address. It doesn't have the site links, small but powerful, everyone needs space, efficiency at the pump. It's missing some of the ad copy to give me more context and more information. And then finally you have this conquest ad. Mercedes-Benz is showing up. It's like, wow, you know, they're showing up in the space. Maybe I would go look at Mercedes, especially if they're local to me and they're in that area. But it's just going like ad copy, reaching the consumer where they're at and giving them examples. I would say these ads, they're okay, but there's a lot of opportunity within the ad copy to say, you know what, you can use site links because Volvo Bellevue doesn't tell you exactly where I'm at in the purchase phase. Maybe I am looking on the maintenance side, but maybe I am looking to make that purchase, you could use site links to essentially help guide me to based on my stage of funnel, guide me to that right content. You could have the address to make sure I can find you. So I'd say think about your intent and opportunity, because there's a lot that you could be doing. And then the final case study I'm going to talk about is similar to this as well in terms of like top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. There's a lot of words on this slide. Greg Gifford would kill me and tell me I'm killing 6 kittens, bullet points. I know it, totally get it. It's trying to give you information so I can talk about it but not actually have to have the entire case study on a page. But essentially we looked at what is the attitudinal value of showing up in search. And we looked at when search queries were either brand, non-brand, or conquest. And then we either said they were exposed to an ad or they weren't exposed to an ad. And we asked them very specific questions, and this one is in the automotive insurance company space, of asking questions like, hey, who is the one company that you think of when you think of automotive insurance? What other companies are coming to your mind? How likely are you likely to purchase from any of these companies? Are you going to take specific actions in the next 3 months? What companies are market leaders in the space? And so we essentially said, we had a whole bunch of test buckets that people could fall into, but we essentially had people that had self-identified as going to be either purchasing or signing up for new auto insurance. We had them actually run and use an online survey and a simulation of search results so we could bucket them into different groups and say what happened if they were exposed to an ad or not exposed to an ad. Does it improve or change what they think about a given brand? And so really the high-level results, and these were statistically significant, so outside of just having ad exposure, this goes back to being like, why do you want to be across those phases? Just from an exposure standpoint, the consumers who saw that brand ad on non-brand queries had a lift in unaided awareness, meaning for the question, if they didn't already answer that competitive brand as the insurance agency of choice, there's a 24% lift that they would actually name that company in the brands that they were considering. When they saw the ad but didn't even click through, they actually were more likely to purchase from that, even though they didn't actually go to the landing page and click through. And then in terms of being viewed as a market leader, they also viewed the insurance agency as a market leader overall in the space. So there is value to even just showing up across the entire funnel, whether or not you get the click. And if you do get the click and the consumer goes to your site, what's crazy is the overall metrics across the board in terms of the lift that they saw, it went up even like 2-fold, 3-fold in some of the scenarios. So there is value in search outside of just receiving the click, just from being present. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you for the next poll question.
That's right. Our last poll question is on the screen now, audience. I know we're running a little bit late, so let's try and power through the rest of this webinar because we have so much more great information to get to. All right, so the question is, does your dealership currently create cross-channel digital campaigns? Please select one of the following answers. Yes, and we've integrated marketing channels and strategies. No, we look at each marketing channel individually. Meh, we only look at SEO and SEM together. I tried it, but I didn't see the results we were looking for, or I have no idea what you're asking. Once we get a majority of the votes in, we're going to close this poll and share the results. Still looking for questions from you, my valued audience, for our expert from Bing. We're going to be getting to the Q&A session very shortly. Right after we give away a really cool prize. So I hope you guys have all been paying attention. And still waiting for those votes to come in. Christi, you're doing a lot of talking. I hope you're taking this opportunity to get something to drink.
I did. I just took coffee. So because we're running short on time, I'm going to, as we're waiting for the poll questions to come through, I'm actually going to talk a little bit why I'm asking this question. So one of the things we talk about, search is really important, and the consumer decision journey is really important, but it's not done in a silo. And the reason I ask this, I'm sort of seeding in the question like, are you talking to your peers? Are you talking to your teams? And the reason why is because if you think about search, both organic and paid search, just as their own individual silos that they're in their own sea, they work on their own, you're actually missing out on a lot of opportunity to make sure that you're reaching consumers across that journey. I have an article that is published on Search Engine Land, and I can send the link. I think I have the link in the resource side. I might have it to a different one, different article. But you want to think about, you can actually create paid search remarketing campaigns based on the engagement that you have with consumers across other channels. So when you think about remarketing, a lot of people just use it like, did they do this one action on my site? Have they purchased? Have they not purchased? You can actually go in and say, hey, these people have engaged with me from an email standpoint now. I want to alter what type of queries I show up from a search perspective and what messaging I give them and where I send them on the site based on what they've done and how they've engaged with you. And I see that we have the results up.
Yes, we do. 62% of today's audience said yes, they do currently create cross-channel digital campaigns. And 8% said no, we look at marketing channels individually. 15% said they like to look at SEO and SEM together. Another 8% said they tried it, but they weren't really thrilled with the results. And the last 8% said that they had no idea what we were talking about. Christi, back to you.
Okay, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. So essentially where I'm coming at with this poll question is for the, I think it was 70%-ish, or is a really high percentage,
64, yeah.
64 that's doing the digital integrated campaigns. What I mean is, are you talking to each other? Are you essentially trying to keep a consistent user experience and consistent messaging as you go across different marketing channels? So I'm not going to dig into it too much, but I just want to push it out there of, make sure from a search perspective, SEM and SEO, that you're not just looking at search in a silo, that you're talking to your social teams, that you're talking to the email teams that are coming out, and that you can use the data and information to actually impact what you do from a search perspective, especially on the paid side, because you can choose the words and phrases you show up for, how you bid, the ad copy, the messaging, the landing page. You can tailor that based on if and how they've engaged with you from an other marketing channel perspective. And essentially, I call it, it's like you're searching for an audience. You already have that audience based on the other channels they've engaged with you at. So really quickly, I mentioned you want to be driving that seamless experience. I already talked about it. I'm not going to go in more depth, but just make sure you're reaching consumers once they come into your site, they have a good experience. And then it's that whole point about thinking holistically. I, as a user, touch multiple channels. I don't just touch one. I touch everything across the board. I'm on my devices. Like I said, I don't go online. I live online. And so if you aren't consistent with how you message to me and how you engage with me, it's a really disjointed customer experience. And as the consumer goes along that path, if you're only reaching them with display from the awareness perspective, if you're only reaching them for loyalty on the Facebook perspective, you're missing out on ways that you could actually be doing a better job of reaching the consumer and helping them move down that purchase journey, purchase path. And then very briefly, you also want to be looking at from a full picture perspective. You don't just want to be looking at search from a, did they come in and search, did they convert from search? I'm going to have a link to Thinking Attribution Models and Moving Beyond Last Click Attribution. It's in the resources section. It sort of talks about some of the fallacies of, depending on how you have attribution set up, why you might be overvaluing or undervaluing different marketing channels. Really the goal is you want to test, learn, optimize. You want to think about the processes you have in place to enable consumers to move them down the funnel. And you also want to be thinking about those key performance indicators, KPIs, that you look at to make sure that you're not just looking at, did they come into the dealership, did they make that purchase? Because consumers spend a lot of time, especially on these high price purchases and low frequency purchases, in the see and think stages. You want to create that view of performance across devices. Like we said, mobile is becoming more important. So you don't just want to look at your desktop, you also want to look at mobile. You also want to think about across the channels and how they fit in together, because as I went through that customer decision journey, you saw I engage with a lot of different channels, and you want to do it across the entire purchasing cycle. And I know that companies like DealerOn have the ability to pull in some of the CRM data, and they give you a view outside of just your digital, but they also can integrate into some of the other platforms you're looking at. So at a very high level, we talked about the customer decision journey, deliver that seamless experience, measure performance, and make sure that you keep on going back and essentially doing that flywheel for test, learn, optimize, and keep it going. As I said, I have a handful of suggested resources. If you want to know more about that See, Think, Do model, Occam's Razor, it's pretty geeky. It goes really, really deep. Essentially, it will give you a lot of information. As I mentioned, you have attribution. There's some problems with attribution models today that might be actually causing you to overvalue or undervalue different aspects of your marketing campaigns. I go into that in the Search Engine Land article that's here. And then if you want more information about how to think about the journey type, this new insights on the customer decision journey is also, or CDJ, is available on Search Engine Land, and we're going to be having more articles coming out about it in the next few months. And then you can also, I'm going to have that white paper. My goal is I will have it done and edited by the end of this month and ready to publish it. So follow me on Twitter if you want to have it, get access to it. I'm going to pass the action items. You'll be able to look at these later, and we're going to go straight into, I think, we do the prize next, Eliana?
Yeah, we do. All right, audience. That was, I told you it was filled with a lot of great information, didn't I, audience? Yes, I did. And right now, I want to direct your attention over to the handout section of the GoToWebinar interface. In there, you're going to be able to download Christi Olson's slide deck. I know it had so much great information. So if you want, download that, and you will definitely be ahead of the charge, all right? You have until the end of this broadcast to get that handout downloaded. Right now, though, let's turn on our webcams. Christi?
Oh, okay. I was just kidding. Am I back? Okay, I was going to eat yogurt. Like, get my breakfast.
Oh, you were eating yogurt. I'm sorry. Well, you know what? We have a really, really cool giveaway today. So if you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, I announced that our good friends over at Microsoft and Bing are giving away some cool prizes on today's webinar. Look, check it out. It's like this sweatshirt, not this one, but like one that looks just like it, and a whole bunch of cool stuff, water bottles and a band and a hat. I'm actually quite jealous I am not in on this one. All you had to do was answer a simple question from today's presentation. Christi, you did mention the answer to this, right?
I did, and I actually had it on a slide. So it was directly on the slide. So instead of having people search for it,
excellent, excellent. We are going to ask if there are any vendors out there in the audience. We're going to ask you to please sit this one out. We do, of course, value your attendance at all of our webinars, but this prize really is intended for dealership personnel only. So, for right now, hope everyone's at their keyboards. Get ready, and good luck. According to ComScore, what is the percentage of market share that the Bing network currently has in search? Ooh, let's see.
I don't have to be 100% exact. I actually gave her a range because I mentioned it in 2 or 3 different ways. So
let's see. Who was the first person? I have to scroll up for this. This is a name I've never heard of before. Sarah Braith? Braith? I hope I said that right. She wrote in 32.8%. That's within your range.
That is very exact. That is the exact number that was on the slide. Way to go, Sarah.
Wow, all right. Sarah, first time winner over here. I don't know if this is the first webinar you've attended, but congratulations, Sarah Braith. Hey, do me a favor, Sarah. I would love to know what dealership you're from, so please write on in and let me know. Oh, she said no, it's not her first webinar, but she finally got it. Congratulations, Sarah Braith. You are today's winner, and you won a really great prize. Sarah says she's with Matt Sachs Chevy Buick in Belle Plaine, MN, Minnesota? Minnesota.
All right.
Montana.
Yeah, MT is Montana, I think, Minnesota.
No, MO is Montana. Maybe it's Minneapolis. We're not really sure where Belle Plaine is, but we are going to send you something. I'll tell you what. Send me your... I really got to work on my states. Send me your mailing address. Oh, it is Minnesota. Yay! Whew, haven't drank too much Fireball today. All right, Sarah, congratulations. We do need your mailing address. Thank you.
I wish I could see what you're reading. You're just cracking up over there.
People are sending me really mean messages now because I don't know my state abbreviations. Sarah, send me your mailing address. Right now we're going to get to those questions. Oh, wait. I do want to say thank you, everyone, for playing along. Huge congratulations to first-time winner Sarah Braith. And we want to thank all of our audience for playing along. Don't worry. Come on back to another DealerOn webinar. Who knows, that might be your lucky day, and you'll win a very cool prize on a DealerOn webinar giveaway. But for right now, congratulations to Sarah Braith. And we got to thank our good friends over at Bing and Microsoft for their incredible generosity. Are you ready for your questions, ma'am?
I am ready for the questions.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
I think it actually was the slide before. So for this one?
No, the next one.
Oh, actual next one, sorry.
There you go. All right, and you're welcome, Sarah. Okay, oh, let me scroll up for our first question. First question came in from Brad. He wanted to know, does Bing have any testing tools? I think it was
well,
when you were
okay, so
talking about your page load speed thing, and he wanted to know if Bing had any testing tools that he could take advantage
That was
of.
going to be my next question is context. In terms of testing from an SEO perspective or organic perspective in Webmaster Tools, we do have links to a handful of tools that can go in and it'll give you some high-level insights. A lot of times what I do say is you don't just want to use one tool, you want to use multiple. So for page load speed specifically, I think it's like speedtest. I want to say it's .org. I have them all bookmarked so I don't have all the URLs memorized. Bing will have something, Webmaster Tools, that'll tell you like, are there issues with page speed, yes or no? And then you can look at our grader, but there's also a ton of really great graders out there that you can also use, like page speed. I know Google Analytics also has one that is integrated into Google Analytics, but I would say don't just use one tool, use multiple because it varies depending on the tool you use. So I've had tools come back and tell me my website's fine, and other tools will come back and give me like a D on the grading scale because it's lower on that specific tool. And they hit through different IPs, they use different networks, so that's why you want to use more than just one.
All right, thank you so much. Great question, Brad. All right, oh, by the way, Brad also followed up with, hey, so you're looking for a car? What kind of vehicle are you looking for? I could probably help you. I wrote back to him, I'm like, subtle, real subtle. All right. All right, just a couple more questions, and then we have to close out the show because we are really running over on time. Jason wrote in, he says, hey, so Google announced a separate mobile index. Will Microsoft follow suit?
So, great question, Jason. I think the reason, I've actually gotten this quite a bit, and I did mention that Google announced their mobile index. Right now at Bing, what we're essentially doing is we see the value of both desktop and mobile combined. So we aren't actually creating a full separate mobile index because we want the user experience to be pretty consistent across the board. So when somebody's on a mobile device, they are going to get mobile pages essentially on there, and you will see that we do have a mobile preferred and sometimes within the mobile search results we will have an annotation to show that this is a better mobile experience in terms of sites, but we are not creating a full separate mobile index yet.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Tristan says, we look fabulous, by the way. Okay, next question comes from Mike. Mike says, does Microsoft really have a 33% share? That seems way higher than I would expect.
What's funny
is says so it must be true.
And I think, I'm trying to remember who it was that asked the question as we were chatting before it began. He goes, well, they have 13% share. It's like we actually had 13% share back in, and I have to think back through my chart. I think that was 2012 is when we had the 12 or 13% share. So when you think about just Bing.com and traffic from Bing.com, that is actually 20%. When you add in our partner network, then we're in that 33% range. It seems a lot higher than people estimate it to be, but that actually is what we're at.
That's
from
awesome.
A volume perspective. And then when you think about voice search, just to throw in this a little bit of plug, voice search is about 5% of that overall volume. It's small today, but it's growing, especially as we see more people engaging with Windows 10. With Cortana integrated into the toolbar, we're seeing more voice search come through there. And so it's only going to be growing from a voice search perspective.
I love it. Okay, last question. By the way, thank you so much for the question, Mike. Last question comes in from Tristan. I'm not going to lie. I really like that name. It's my son's name. I love that name. Tristan was the one who said we both look fabulous. Hey. All right. Tristan says, Christy, how do you set up an account for Bing advertising? Is it hard? Is it easy? Is there like a place we can send him to help him out?
Yes, I can send you a place on how to set up the account. That's like, are you talking about account structure, actual physical setup? So setting up, if you go to, now I have to think, I think it's just bingads.com from a URL perspective. You can go in and say get started. I've actually created accounts, and depending on how much you already know, if you've set up a paid search account before, I think it takes probably, I've done it in about 10-15 minutes setting an account up from scratch. If you're already on Google, what I will tell you, the good news is if you're already advertising on Google, you can essentially do an export of all your Google account, so the keywords, the settings, everything else, you can create a new account and import that directly into Bing. There's going to be a handful of settings that you'll want to look at and potentially change because we do a few things differently than how Google does them, but you can actually take your Google accounts as is today, put them into Bing, and get started very, very, very quickly. And I know that DealerOn is a Bing Ads partner, and so they can also help you with the migrating accounts over. So if you are a DealerOn client, they can actually help you with that, and essentially you just need to tell them, hey, we want to be on Bing, and they will do it for you.
I love you, Red. And by the way, Tristan said you were right. He found it. It's https://bingads.microsoft.com.
Yeah. And it should resolve if you go to Bing Ads. I think it does an auto redirect going in because we have to be on the Microsoft domain.
By the way, Tristan's a girl. She just let me know.
Oh.
You are not the first Tristan I have met who's a girl, but I still love the name. And by the way, she's a redhead too. With that, Red, I love a ginger.
Taking over the world. Taking over slowly.
We are. Hopefully, when you do take over the world, you'll be kind to me. Okay.
It will be a very pale world.
Thank you. Be painless death, right? Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to have you back on the show again if you're willing.
I am willing, so we'll set it up for some time in the future.
I would love that. I would love that. Thank you so much. Phenomenal presentation filled with so much information. Audience, I hope you liked it too. You know what? We're going to be sending out a survey. I loved it, but I want to know what you thought of today's presentation. So please fill out that survey and let us know. We'd love to know what you think. And we're also looking for your suggestions on speakers and topics. So let your opinion be heard, all right? Also want to let you know a link to download a copy of this webinar recording is going to be sent to you in a few hours. So check out that email, and it'll also be posted online within 24 hours at DealerOn.com/webinar. From there you can view our upcoming webinar schedule and access any of our past webinars too. And yes, Christi Olson is going to be speaking on an expert panel on an upcoming Bing Ads webinar. It's going to be on December 14th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. This is an advanced webinar, really, really high up stuff, all right? So if you think you can handle it, hey, it's a free webinar. The link is on the screen now, and it's going to be on paid search and the art and science of audience and attribution modeling. So if you want to join in on the fun, check out that link, and we hope to see you there. Also, DealerOn is going to be hosting another Top Golf event. This time it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, December 7th. It's golf, it's Google, and it's cocktails. Whew. And let me tell you what else. It's free. All you have to do is show up, all right? So, space is limited. The link is on the screen now. It's tinyurl.com/ScottsdaleTG. If you want more information about it, check out that link, and we hope to see you there. And we don't have a DealerOn webinar next week. Obviously, next Thursday is, Thanksgiving. So I'm going to let you know. I know, right? We are not going to be here next week, but invitations will be going out a week from tomorrow for our next DealerOn webinar, and it's a doozy. It's going to be on December 1st. You're going to want to put this one on your calendar. It is called How to Close and Deliver 3 Cars in 1 Day. I know. Sounds like a lot, right? Title says it all. We're going to dedicate a full hour to show you in detail how rock star car salesman Mike, the Louisville Chevy dude, Davenport, does just that. He should know. He does a hat trick about 5 times a month on average. To most people in the car biz, it seems like a Herculean effort. But Mike does it without an assistant and still delivers a red carpet experience to every customer. Would you like to know how to close and deliver 3 cars in 1 day? I know I would. So, if you don't, there's probably something wrong with you. But if you do and you're ready to learn how to close and deliver 3 cars in 1 day, then this here's probably the webinar for you. It's an hour of awesomeness that you simply can't afford to miss. So register now, and don't forget, DealerOn's weekly webinars are held Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about our webinars and our topics, hey, contact me directly. We'd love to hear from you. I know I would. I'm all over the internet. I'm on Google+, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. It's pretty easy to find me. I'm even on all the automotive social networks. Or you know what? You can just email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us on today, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in DealerOn's continuing education series. And yes, On behalf of Christi Olson and all the good folks over at Bing, Microsoft, and DealerOn, it's my honor to wish you all a wonderfully happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving holiday next week. Count your blessings, not your calories, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.